By practicing retrieving knowledge from memory, it's possible to revise much more effectively. Retrieval practice is about moving away from the focus on getting information into our heads and moving towards how we can best get information out of our heads. It's often called the testing effect, as it's closely associated with tests and assessments. Input less, output more, and test, test, test. Retrieval practice involves drawing information out from our long-term memory. That's the store of knowledge your brain retains for a very long time. Your happiest memories, the jokes you tell, and the interesting facts you pass on to your friends are all drawn out from your long-term memory. Anytime you recall learned information from this type of memory, you're doing retrieval practice. Many people mistakenly believe that retrieving knowledge from memory is a fixed ability that we can't improve. However, research shows that we can, and retrieval practice has been well researched for over a century. In 2009, a researcher split students into two groups. The first group studied the same material over 4 separate sessions and were then assessed on how much they could remember. The second group were allowed to study the same material for only 2 sessions, but after each session they were given short tests on the material, before the final assessment. The second group remembered 30% more of the material than the first. We know through research like this that retrieval practice works. But how? Well, the idea isn't to simply repeat correct information from your short-term memory. Instead, you need to draw out the information from your long-term memory. If information is in your short-term memory, you're simply keeping it active in your mind, such as when a barista in a coffee shop remembers a lengthy drinks order. The barista is unlikely to remember that order in an hour's time, and certainly not the next day. It's important that when you use retrieval practice, you only use your long-term memory. You can do so by making sure you stop thinking about the necessary information for a while, before you retrieve it. Every time you retrieve information from memory, you make the pathway to that information stronger. It's a lot like walking down a forest path. If you keep walking down the path, it will clear over time and become distinct. It'll be easier to find and revisit each time you need it. If you only walk down the path once, it will become overgrown and hard to find. In the same way, the more practice and effort you put into retrieving information, the more firmly you'll lodge it into your long-term memory, and the easier it will be to find and recall. Remember, this technique might seem difficult, but it's important to keep trying and not to give up. The harder the learning may seem to you, the more likely you are learning.